Hey everyone, I'm Ellen with Rewind with Ellen, and I am joined by my co-host, Roger Carter. Hi, Ro.
How are you?
I'm well, although all of a sudden there is this somberness in the air. We just got word that the iconic actress Cicely Tyson has passed away at 96. So that's a little heavy.
It is. We just talked about, like, just found out like 5 seconds ago.
Right. Literally, it's currently circulating everywhere. And what's crazy is that she, or rather, someone from her team, had posted something on Twitter like about 5 hours ago. Like promoting something that she was currently working on. So they haven't really spoken about what caused her death. So yeah, there's some unclarity about that, which I can't imagine what it is, and I hope it's not something that caused her great pain. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. Just
Hey, all I can say is something positive here is that she lived to be 96. I mean, if I lived to be 96, God bless.
right. Shouldn't be so lucky, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah. She lived a long and bountiful life. So
still acting. I think she's still acting in 96. So
yes.
if I can walk at 96, give me an award for that.
Right, for walking, right. Yikes. Yeah, so rest in peace, Cicely Tyson. So we have a good show, I want to say, tonight in terms of the movies that we're chatting about today. They are heavy weighted, if you will, in terms of content. So I've been looking forward to this conversation. So the first movie on the list is Cutthroat City. It's currently number 6 on Netflix, which says a lot about it. It's directed by your boy, the RZA from Wu-Tang. I see you representing. You couldn't help yourself, right?
I had to. When we're on there, you got to do it. You got to do it while you can.
I like that sweatshirt, though. So it's from a screenplay by Paul Cuschieri. The film stars Shameik Moore, Demetrius Shipp Jr., Denzel Whitaker as the leads, and Ethan Hawke, Isaiah Washington, Terrence Howard, Wesley Snipes, Kat Graham, and T.I. as supporting characters. Now, I was pleasantly surprised by this cast. I felt like they pulled characters, not the actors themselves, but these characters from the island of misfit toys. But somehow,
That's accurate. That's
right,
accurate.
right. But somehow it all makes sense. So the premise is 4 boyhood friends, Blink, Miracle, Andre, and Junior. Those are their characters' names. From New Orleans, lower 9th Ward, return home after Hurricane Katrina to find their homes decimated by the hurricane. No jobs, no help from FEMA. They're out of options. And so they reluctantly turn to a local gangster cousin played by T.I. And he offers them like this one shot at turning things around. And they now have to pull off this dangerous heist to make ends meet for survival purposes. And they end up robbing a casino. Now, it's easy to misjudge this movie just based on the premise, but once I got into it, I was into it. And I think that was largely due to the tone that was set early on. Again, the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, the lack of emergency response. Like, you remember when that happened, there was a lot of criticism towards the emergency response from federal, state, local, and federal people. And so that reality, because it actually happened, in my mind, made this film believable. What did you think of the premise, like before we dive deep into characters and plot? What was your initial thought going into this movie?
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans, but I've been to NOLA like 6 times. So that's one of my favorite places to be. My boys, we've done every 4 bachelor parties down there. And so I just love birthday parties. It's just it's a city where in this movie, I don't think it really depicts the love that races have for each other, because you're intertwined with, you're going to see a little bit of everything. But the city really does care about one another. In this movie, you don't see it as much. And again, I can't compare that to how Katrina was. You see how segregated it became because where the levee broke.
Right.
But I thought it was a beautiful story. The one thing RZA does well is music, and so I felt the music fit every scene, and I was like, oh, so even when I was a little down, I was like, oh, here we go. And it felt like Juice, you know, when Juice came out, I was like, oh, 4 boys. I was like, oh, here we go. We're gonna do a heist, and I'm assuming something's gonna go wrong, of course. But then you see all these things that come out of that, and knowing New Orleans a little bit, I've only one time gone a little bit outside of the French Quarter. Normally they're like, yeah, don't go outside the French Quarter. So I've gone maybe one time, ventured out. I really want to see everything. So that's on my bucket list next time. When I go to New Orleans again, I'm going to take an actual trip and really visit the outside, and see the districts and see what's going on, to really understand it.
Yeah, I've never been to New Orleans, but it's definitely one of the places that I want to visit just because of just the culture and the vibe. And there's something really special about New Orleans that I am looking forward to experiencing one day. And so the whole idea of trying to survive a broken system, like, sure, we've seen this narrative a whole bunch of times, but for this particular movie, I thought it was unique. Just because of the reason behind it, right? And so I thought Blink, the main character played by Shameik Moore, I thought he was such a strong and credible lead. Like, I think for me, it was like he brought this all together. Like, he made all this just a lot more interesting for me, a lot more believable again. And so he was an aspiring artist working on a graphic novel that he called Cutthroat City, right? And so, he's denied a chance to publish his work, and so he becomes disgruntled. And keep in mind, he has a wife and a kid that he needs to support. There are no jobs. There's just literally nothing else for him to do, right? So him and his boys just figure out, like, all right, we got to step up our game in a major illegal way. And so that just kind of, sets forth these weird series of events. And so I thought that it was just going to be a one-off, right? Like, I was in it for a one-off. Yeah. And then once I realized that it was a lot more than that, I kind of, I think that's when I started to dig into this a little bit more, because I was interested to see, like, where this would lead. And also in terms of supporting characters, again, it was a really solid cast. I was not expecting to see Wesley Snipes, who plays Blink's father, and then they made him look a lot more, so that was weird. They made him look a lot more older, but then he had these muscles and he was swole, and it was confusing because I'm like, okay, Grandpa's looking kind of good. And that, in my mind, I just couldn't compute those two things. But it all made sense in a weird way. Like, I started off not wanting to like this, but and it's a 2-hour movie, right? And it's a slow rollout, so you have to be invested. But I think I enjoyed it.
I see.
There was a lot going on.
Like, I really can't take Wesley with this shirt. I mean, can I see what's going on? So here's the only problem I have is the ending. It was a very frustrating. Oh my God!
I wanted to talk to you about that and get some clarity.
Okay, so we'll go into that later. I'll just stick to the premise of the story. Okay. I love the idea of an artist just trying to survive, and I've never felt that pain, that hunger to, like, hey, this is how bad it's getting. I'm resulting to stealing. Knowing that I can die and all that stuff. And so sometimes when I look at these pictures, and that's why I said it reminded me of Juice, that they don't think about what could go wrong. They just think about the upsides, never the downsides. And I'm like, this is supposedly based on like a loosely true story, right? If you can do that, but the time is Katrina and it did happen. Mm-hmm. So, like, having you seen all these things, it never works out the way you want to do it. But never. I guess when you're in desperation mode, you don't see that other side. You don't see what could go wrong. I could lose one of my friends. I could lose my life. What is my kid going to do? What is my wife? I just got married. What is my wife going to do? And to give up just because one person said told you no, it's like, come on, you're better than that. Mm-hmm. The cast is amazing. Terrence Howard comes in at the end. Oh, I was like, oh, right. I love Ethan Hawke, especially when he just is one of those characters. He doesn't care. Like that was like grimy Ethan Hawke. Like, this is who I am. I'm a politician, and I'm just gonna have my drinks and just be whoever I want to be. And when he's like that in that mode, he's like the reverse of Training Day. He's like Denzel Washington's character in a way, almost. It's like, I don't care, whatever it is we need to do. But there is a love for these kids and understanding. I don't know how much Katrina plays in that, because these kids didn't have a way out. So everybody's trying to understand. The cops even trying to say, hey, these kids are in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Let's try to get them out of this. But then to have a second chance, and that's the one that I think I lost my mind on. I was like, okay, they literally wiped everything clean. They said, you guys are good to go. You've been shot at. You lost one of your best friends that you grew up with. That was kind of weird. The whole explain it to the mom, like that was a weird scenario too. But now everything's good, and you're like, okay, I have my family, I have my wife, but then I had to also understand, like, well, what do I have though, really? And that was a deeper question, like, what do I have to go? And so I love that other scenario they gave, and that's why I was a little confused myself. I was like, was that a scenario if he didn't get shot, or what was going on? Like, if he did it the right way? So we talk about that.
So to your point about Blink and them not really having that one-off and then moving on with their life, I think it was at that moment that I realized, like, oh crap, Blink is a legit thief. Like, I thought we're just in and out. We're going to get in and out. We're in it for the money, to support our family, and then we're done. But the fact that he decided when he didn't really have to go back, I thought that was interesting for them to make that turnaround and sort of leave it up to us to determine, oh, he's a whole thief. Like, he enjoys this. So I did enjoy that sort of turn of events in my head, because I was with his character. I loved his character. He was smart. He was leading all efforts. He was making all decisions, and he was a good actor in this.
Yeah, and solid acting across the board.
Solid acting. And so once I realized, like, oh, okay, so maybe he is really a bad guy. It took me a minute to come to terms with that, because I'd fallen in love with who I thought he was. And then now I have to like rearrange my thoughts and come to terms with, okay, he's really a bad guy then. And so what does that mean? Like, you have a kid and a wife at home, so forget them? Like, how does that all work? So the ending, before we get to the ending, Ethan Hawke's character, that was a little confusing for me, because I thought that he was a good guy, right? Like, he had their best interest at heart until the end.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm still a little unclear about Miracle's role in it. So once the credits run, you see this other part, and that's what confused me. Like, how did Miracle, like, was he in on it? What did you make of that?
Well, it seemed like everybody knew everybody, right? All the powers that be, everybody had their hand in something.
Okay.
So in terms of knowing the saint, like, I know who the main guy is. Like, we were trying to find, can I get a meeting with this guy? This is like, oh, I already know the guy. And so you got to put a bag over your head. We'll take you to the secret spot and trying to find out what's going on. Courtney's character, he was the undercover cop who was working, and kind of dealing stuff. So there was always deals going on. And I think maybe that was just the times of Katrina. Sure. Like, again, they kept on saying, we're trying to still figure it out. Like, no one can figure out, like, what area is going to be developed first. So no one cares about the ward whatsoever. No one cares about the 9. No one cares. So it's whatever you want to do. And it's kind of funny. I was looking on this, and T.I.'s character, Cousin Bass, he has vertigo, and people lost their mind. Black folks lost their mind. They literally lost their mind. I can't believe he would go and do that to his face. Like, it don't represent us. I'm like, why didn't you get somebody who really has it? I'm like, people, he's an actor. We get a role. We see this. We say, okay, this is what we do. My character will wear this or have this, or has a speech impediment, has a handicap. That's what we do. You can't blame it on the actor. So that kind of, people nowadays, they suck. Anyway,
I thought it was kind of interesting, and I guess maybe dope,
Yeah,
that his character. Like, okay, that was left field.
yeah. Besides supermodel, that's the only other person. I have a friend whose girlfriend has it, but
Right.
you don't really see that
No, you
in
don't.
movies. So I was like, oh, this is great. It's opening other doors, and I was like, I can't believe he did that.
Like what? Like what did y'all think he did? Like,
Right? You can't win, man. You can't.
and honestly, that gave his character a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I thought T.I. did a good job. I would love to see T.I. in a Nation of Islam film, just because he embodies that sort of, you know, that energy. I think he would play a good Nation of Islam character.
He just has a whole problem saying, like, he always says you dig, and I don't know if he can get that out of his like vocabulary.
I think for the right role, he would.
All right, but no matter what, any character at one point is gonna come. You dig. It's just gonna come out. It just comes out.
My last thought on this is I'm a Kat Graham fan, but for whatever reason, I just could not connect to her character, Demira. She played Blink's wife. I had a hard time.
Yeah, why was she in the movie?
Wait, damn.
She's beautiful. No, she's beautiful, but I just didn't get like they.
First of all, I don't know that that's the right person to put a New Orleans sort of dialect on, because that was not authentic to me. And
That was the only one I would argue at, but I guess you just needed a face to help with all the grime. You know, that was that.
Right, a pretty face. Is that what it is?
Yeah, shit. I don't. Wow. Okay.
No. I think she's beautiful, but did it need a pretty face that did a subpar, not acting job, but with the dialect? It just, I don't know. It took away from the movie for me.
I just didn't. Yeah, I agree. They didn't match.
Right.
I think they could have done better with that. I mean, she could have played the cop, right? I wouldn't. You could have interchanged those roles. I would have been fine with it.
Yeah.
That's how. Like, all right.
So bring in somebody that's really from New Orleans, or at least somebody that's going to pull off that.
Yeah, well, it also just felt the scenes were kind of rushed. Like, I don't know if they knew it kind of felt like friends, like hanging out and faking like they're married, right? It wasn't like there was something missing. Like, even her crying was great, but I was like, she didn't grab me.
You did it.
Like, Wesley Snipes as a dad grabbed me more than she did as his wife.
Right, considering she watched what happened to her husband. Like, I was expecting like snot coming out of her nose, like real emotions, but whatever, neither here or there. The movie was good. Please watch it, support it. Cutthroat City on Netflix, and it's top 10 on the streaming service, so that's saying something. Any last words about it?
Soundtrack's great. There's a new song with Method Man on there. Oh my God, I was like,
yeah. Soundtrack was dope. All right, so moving on. The next good film, at least I think it's good. I can't wait to hear what you think. Is White Tiger, which is currently number 8 on Netflix. So that's saying something. And it's an American drama film directed by Ramin Barani, and it's an adaptation of his friend's book. The film stars Adarsh Gaurav in his first leading role, along with Rajkumar Rao and Priyanka Chopra Jonas, who also serves as an executive producer, along with Ava DuVernay. Now, when I saw Ava's name attached to this, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm actually going to watch it. Because I'd watched a preview and didn't really pay attention to it. Then when I saw her name, of course, that piqued my interest. And I dove in, and I'm so glad that I did. The film is about a servant trapped in a rigged system, and he rises up through ambition, wit, and a cunning disposition to become a free man, aka a white tiger. Now, I am here for Indian movies because they bring a lot of rich culture and sort of provocativeness that we're not used to, just because it's India and they have like their own way of life and how they see life. And so it made me think of Slumdog Millionaire, which I loved, and I think it won an Oscar back in the day. And it reminded me of this movie. The similarities were not so much in the story or the plot, but more so of how special this film was. So before I dive deep, what are your initial thoughts of the White Tiger?
I hate him.
A little different. What?
I hate him.
You hate the character.
Yes, I hate the character. The movies, I hate the character.
Why did you hate the character?
Well, to go back to your preview,
yeah.
Originally the preview made it seem like there was a triangle love story going on. So I thought, when I explained to somebody, I was like, oh, I think there's like a triangle love story. He's a helper, because that's how the preview for the movie was. And I was like, oh, that's I was like, really? And then maybe he's the helper, and because he, comes at a different angle. I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And I was like, oh no, this is not that at all. And usually when we see movies like this or the Indian culture, you saw the beginning of like all the different gods and how they play homage to spirit and love and happiness. And so this was dark. This was dark. Like
yeah.
And so I don't think I was ready for it. I mean, sometimes, you find yourself rooting for him at one point, and then another time you're like, oh, please die. Just please die right now. Please don't be money in the bag. Like I was like, please don't money in the bag. Let there be clothes at this point. Okay, that's just, I can go into it, but that's just my initial. It was very frustrating. I'm sitting there like, no. I'm yelling at the TV. So shout outs to him as an actor, where he got me just on all of my feelings with rage and anger, because it wasn't the happiness that I expected from India.
Interesting. Okay.
That's all.
That's what it is. The story is told in first-person narration, which I thought was cool because it gave it a personal and insightful perspective of Balram's point of view. That's the lead character's name, Balram. And yeah, to your point, it starts off very innocent, right? Because it starts off with him as a kid, and it just talks about his life in the village of India, and the whole idea of inferiority based on caste systems in India, which is very heavy, right? Like if you aren't from this tribe, or if you're not from this caste system, then it's the haves and the have-nots. There is no in between. So woe unto you, right? And so the first half, like you said, it's quick and it's light because it's the introduction into this character, and they make us, kind of, fall for his plight and understand and connect. And then the second half, like you said, gets really dark, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I was really rooting for this guy, and now I don't know how I feel about him. But in the same breath, I understand his plight, right? Because why shouldn't he have what he deserves to have? And then just seeing how, the superior families and people treat servants was hard to watch. And I guess that's why Netflix titled it Provocative and Offbeat. Because initially when I read it, I was like, really? But like, why? Because it's an Indian film. Then once I watched it, there were moments where I cringed. And it was hard for me to watch some scenes because it was just horrible the way they treated him. But then they took it, right? And I love how he explained just generally how Indian people are. They're just very forgiving. They're all about, the light and the good. And so what I loved the most was the metaphor towards the beginning of the film, the metaphor of the chickens in the coop, right? And the poor Indian man. It was deep, right? So the metaphor was like, when you think of chickens in a coop, they're going to be slaughtered, right? For food, for sustenance. And so other chickens are watching their fellow chickens get slaughtered, and they do nothing. They don't rebel. They don't make noise. They just sit there and watch, knowing that they're next. And so he equated that to servants being raised to behave the same way. And I just thought that was so deep, right? And so this metaphor of a servant who's carrying furniture to his boss for 2 years straight and giving the boss money, giving the boss the money of the furniture without ever stealing it, without ever having taken it for himself, speaks a lot to the Indian way of mind, or rather the servant way of mind. I thought that was a great way to connect those two.
Well, also, they were going to kill your whole family.
Well, then there's that. Then there's that.
It's like, oh, my whole family. That's good.
Right.
So you made a great point. I also wanted to equate, you know, when Priyanka Chopra is sitting down with the young lady and they're just talking, and he brings in tea, and she's like, woo, and he smells, and he's like grabbing his crotch and his teeth, and he has stains on his shirt.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no one ever told me. My dad never told me just about hygiene. And so I equated it to so many things, kind of like if you were growing up in a impoverished neighborhood, you know, what are the skill sets that people give you?
Yeah.
They just want you to survive. Like his dad was like, listen, my goal is if you survive, we won. That's it. And then we marry you off, and then you do this, and then you work. That's how that works. But he never gave him these skill sets to really help him get out, because that's how it was. And he's like, well, that's how I survived, so we pass those down. So then I kind of thought about people in America. I was like, where are those similarities? And you see that with, like, you know, education, also with maybe investment. Like, you know, I've never invested in anything. Why? Because my dad never told me. My parents never showed me that. My parents never showed me the education, a value of saving $1, earning it, and putting it away. So all those things, I kind of saw those similarities with Bahram's character. It's like, hey, no one ever told me this. So if I never ever told me that, I'm going, 20 years of my life where I'm just trying to figure out. When I do, it's like, boom. And remember that time he's looking at the white tiger, and he's just like, oh my God, like an epiphany just happens. And then he faints because all this just comes rushing to him. It's like, I have to be the most powerful person in the room, and I have to start getting beat. And the servant voice always pissed me off. He was like, yes, I'm serving, yes. And it was like, yo, chill, man. Just be normal. Just be normal for a minute. But also the American Indians that come in and have that little taste of culture. And they're like, no, this is what we do. We treat people equally. You have rights. You should be treated like a person. And it's like, if I've been beat upside my head for, you know, since I was a kid, I don't know any better. Like, I can do this. I can hang out with you. And, you know, when the accident happens, which really changes the whole entire movie. Yeah. And so that's where you kind of feel for the character there, because his whole life was about to be gone.
Done.
I lost I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming. I really didn't see that one coming. My only last thing, my only gripe was they had all this money. Why they got that hoopty car?
Because that's not a hoopty car in India.
But you know, when he's driving a BMW, I'm just like, why was it? You know what I'm saying? They picking up all these people. I was just like, okay.
Oh, you mean like when he reached wherever he wanted to reach, he got a BMW?
Yeah. And I was just like, why? I was like, that's the car. I was like, all right. Well, that always threw me off. All the money in the car. I was like, all right.
Maybe they weren't flashy people like that. Who knows? What stood out to me, one of the many things that stood out to me, was the weight the boys, the sons in the family have to carry to support. Like, I counted the people in his damn family. It was 15, right? It was 15. So whatever, you know, money he made from his job as a driver/servant, all of it had to go to his grandmother, who had to give him permission to work this job in the first place, right? So the alternative was you either, you know, marry the woman, the girl that we choose for you and have a family, or you go off and do this, but every cent you make comes back to me. That concept blew my mind.
Yeah, you can't get away ever. It's like, I have an idea of who I want to be as a person. Right. And they're like, no, you don't. Yeah. This is what's going on. So the moral of the story in all these movies we're watching today, please wear a condom. And you can that's my 2 cents on that.
Expecting that. And I do like how there was a contrast between him and his brother. The brother was the subservient one to his grandmother, whereas Balram decided, like, F you, Granny. I'm going to go live my best life. Like, whatever it is I got to do, that's what I'm going to do. So we got a chance to see how Balram would have ended up, because his brother ended up that way, just like in a sunken place, like not doing anything that he wanted to do. He lived his life for his grandmother. And then one last thing, I love the line that Balram said when he was brushing his teeth for the first time in his life. Okay. He said, if only a man can spit out his past so easily. That blew me away.
I was still looking at his teeth the whole time. Like, yeah, it was.
I can't get past the grill and the breath and the
I can't even imagine.
No.
My nose was automatic. It was like, oh Lord.
I think it was dope for Ava DuVernay to be a part of this. Like, I think for me, that just says a lot about like where she is creatively, directionally, where she's going. This opens up so many possibilities of films in terms of different cultures, different ethnicities, just like different shit. And so I loved this film. It was special. So many lessons to be learned too.
But also, it was a beautiful story. Like at the end of the day, it really is a beautiful story that's been told.
Yeah.
But he's also delusional, right? At the end, because he's writing this letter, and he's like, you know, the future's yellow and brown. And he's like, I want to meet you, and he's literally explaining, well, I might have killed this guy, but I did it for a good cause. And I want you to understand that the future is us, though. And so you see one side of him, and then you're like, whoa, brother, you got some issues.
Clearly, anybody that would bludgeon somebody to death to steal his money has issues. So,
but they almost put him in jail for life.
I think that was the first time his craziness clicked in.
Yeah, his tear down that one scene where the tear comes out his eye, and you just he's so oblivious, and then it just boom, light bulb goes off, and you're like, oh, I think everybody's light bulb in the room goes like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm responsible for what?
Right.
So.
And I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
For this to be his first leading role, Adarsh Gurab did his thing.
You're gonna see more of him.
Definitely see more of him. And hopefully the grill situation is different. I don't know if that was like for this film or that's just the state of his current affairs, which if it is, that's fine. Listen, I can say that because I got my grill corrected. So I feel like I'm speaking from a genuine place. No shade.
Side note, right now, if your grill is messed up, this is the perfect timing with the mask situation. I've said this a million times. I'm gonna keep on. This is my one thing. This is your time to shine. When the mask thing is over, then how you doing? Hey girl, how you? Hey, oh my God, you got your all right. That's it.
Hilarious.
All right, sorry.
All right. So next up is your joint, which I'm so glad you told me to watch.
Yes, American Skin. Another Nate Parker production. Nate hits you. Nate hits you so hard sometimes. You're like, damn, Nate, why you gotta go there?
This was a lot.
American Skin opens up with a traffic stop captured on body cams. The driver, Lincoln, played by Nate Parker, watches helplessly as his teenage son, Kajani, played by Tony Espinoza, is shot down by a police officer. This incident plants the seed that welcomes a kind of vigilante courtroom drama that we see unfold later. And the conversations in that courtroom drama blew my. That's what America needs to have right now. Yeah. And I'm from Staten Island. Those are the conversations I get into with people from Staten Island, and it's hard. It's really hard sometimes because I have a lot of cop friends, a lot of firefighter friends that are just like, bro, I don't understand. I don't this. So this hit home for me on so many levels. So when I saw this, I was like, we got to get this on the show. So tell me, what'd you think, Ellen?
Bravo. I mean, there's just a lot that I thought. I love that it's written and directed by Nate Parker. He did a superb job. And so it stars not only Nate Parker, but also Omari Hardwick, Theo Rossi from Sons of Anarchy. Love that boy. Shane Paul McGee, and Bo Knapp, just to name a few. And so the first question that came to mind when I watched this, since Nate Parker wrote the screenplay, was whether or not his role as Nat Turner in Birth of a Nation informed this project, right? In addition to our current climate, because there are a lot of similarities between Birth of a Nation and this in terms of the vigilante mentality, right? Nate Turner had enough of the white man killing Black people, and so he just took it upon himself to assassinate all of them, right? And so that's the first thing that popped into my mind, which I thought was dope. I've never been so proud of dialogue that represents various potential perspectives that are tied to a real life weighted epidemic, because that's what this is, right? The shooting of unarmed Black men, it's an epidemic.
Yes.
So bravo to Nate Parker for penning this. It was profound. It was provocative. It made me, there were a lot of emotions that were stirred because of this. A lot of conversations in this film that I want to talk about that had like sort of parallel connections. The acting was like, out of a 10, I'm just going to go ahead and just give this a 10 just because of what it meant, what it means. First of all, what led you to watch it?
So to just touch on Birth of a Nation a little bit,
Sure.
Nat Turner, Birth of a Nation messed me up. I thought it was all right. But there was a scene in Birth of a Nation where his character sees God, and God is Black and it's a female, and it messed me up. And I never thought about it because I asked my cousins and other Black friends, and I was like, "Is your God Black or white?" And I've never had this. It blew my mind. I just never thought about it. I was like, "What color is your God?" I was like, "White." I was like, "Oh my God!" We both had to talk. I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That messed me up. Messed me up for like a month." My brain just went like all over the place because I went to Catholic school and I went to this Jewish community school for kindergarten, and I went to Catholic school since like to 12th grade. So my beat in the head of this is what the image is. So when Birth of a Nation comes out and I see that, I was like, my mind was blown. So I was really excited to see where are we going to go with this, where exactly is going to take us. And so, here at the Ellen show, we do research here.
Yes.
So Nat Turner is Birth of a Nation. Nate Parker, his nephew came to live with him out in LA. And so only because he had a better chance of going to a good school. So this movie came up because he had to pick up his nephew and drive him back and forth to school. So he was like, I had to pick him up at night, and we would have these conversations like, so uncle, what do I do, if a cop pulls me? And then that deep conversation where he has on the screen with his son and his son's friend, and then trying to explain as a father. And I love that he put that in there because that's a key point. Yes. I have a nephew that's 18 and 6'2", dark as hell. But he was like, "Oh, can you get me a car?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "I have my car sitting at home on Staten Island, but it's an old school BMW." I was like, "You're going to get pulled over. And just you being who you are, and I'm not saying you're going to be rambunctious, but you question people. You question me. And I want to knock you upside your head. So I know no cop is going to have some patience for you." And so understanding that and trying to have that deep conversation with a family member, your son, your nephew, a friend, I'm so glad he had that conversation, because that's a conversation we need to have. And that's a conversation that other people need to see, that we have to tell our kids that this may happen to you. Whereas you can tell your kid, "Hey, just be respectful, mind your business." And they even say that, "Well, Dad, the law says that I can do this and that." And he's like, "Okay, I know what the law says, but..."
However,
yeah. And so to say that to somebody and be like, "But that doesn't make any sense," and he's still questioning, you're like, "Boy, just listen to the cop and understand that." And so that scene, and I'm glad they didn't give you that full scene till later, because that really helped set up the movie. Yeah, I think if you would have saw the shot right in the beginning, I think you're kind of defeated and you're just like, "Oh God, I can't do another." We just experienced this all summer, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that again. And also, I need to talk about the veterans. My uncle's a veteran, and how they're always treated. Like, he moved to another area, working a janitor position so that his son can get a better education. And so all these things we do as men of color, especially being a vet and still treated like crap when you come home. I mean, this has been going on since every war we've ever fought in. We come back home, we get treated better in the country you went to go fight against. So it's just kind of crazy, all these parallels. And he really, I mean, it shined. It shined on so many different levels. Shout out to the young kid who was the reporter. What's his name here? Sure. Is it Jordan King?
That was his name in the show, right?
Yeah, in the show. And he just did a great job, because there's a point where he has to ask himself, like, hey, I have relatives who are cops, but this is wrong. We need to really have a conversation and talk about this and understand when is wrong and when is right. And we always want to like just defend. And I don't want to go too much into it because I want to give you some time to go, go back and forth. But there are some key points. I would love to hear your perspective of like when the cop says, hey, Mom, I need you to come out and speak on behalf so we can stop the riots. Like stuff like that. Just like, are you kidding me?
And so that was an interesting scene. So the police captain, so the officer that kills this young kid is set free. Nothing happens.
Nothing that we haven't seen before.
Yeah. I mean, no new news there. And so, of course, there's this uprising after that decision is made. And so the captain comes to the family's house and he's speaking with the mother, and, he's trying to persuade her to say something on live camera. And so then her nephew was in the background holding the camera, filming that. And I found myself getting so frustrated. And so what was interesting is I was watching this film with my best friend who's a parent. I am not a parent, right? She is a mother of 2 Black boys, right? So to have her point of view and to have her react and respond the way she was, which was a little different than me, right? Because it's 2 different perspectives, but the anger is still the same. That was an interesting experience, right? And so in that scene, when this kid is just mouthing off at the captain, just talking reckless, I found myself getting so frustrated with him, like, shut the F up. Like, why do you have to talk? Shut up, right? Let this dialogue happen. Like, let it be what it is. Because it's not like the captain, who was Black, by the way, he wasn't there on some rah-rah, right? He was just there doing his job. I mean, it was kind of effed up for him to show up and ask her to do that. Yeah. So I get that frustration from the kid, but shut up. But so my friend's perspective was like, but no, he shouldn't shut up. He should speak up. So I want to go back really quickly to what you touched on in terms of the conversation between Lincoln Jefferson, Nate Parker, and his son, Kijani. So it was interesting to see the perspective of the son, who's all about, well, I have my rights. The law says this, so I'm going to speak up. I'm going to fight back, right? And then you have the father that's like, yo, when dealing with the police, you don't think of laws. You don't think of rights. You just think about surviving that experience and coming home to me. That was such a dope moment and a teachable moment on so many levels. And then there was some parallel connections to the conversation that Nate fast forward down the line. Well, Lincoln is the name of his character, and his wife, right? Yeah, when he's out in this hostage situation, the end is imminent, and she wants him to do this peacefully, right? He wants revenge, right? So it's that same sort of conversation, but now he's on the other side as his son's perspective, and she is now him in terms of, I just want you to come home. And he's like, nah, F that. If I gotta, die fighting, I'm gonna do it. So that to me was kind of like, wow, okay, all right, I respect that juxtaposition of perspectives. Yeah, and so what question did you have?
Yeah, so the young kids, sometimes I really feel that this will end, like, racism will finally end one day, because young kids just have no fear. And we've been raised on like, no, this is what it could have been. Like, before, they could have grabbed you up and lynched you in public, and that's just what they did, right? If you acted out of turn. Right. But now, as time goes and goes, stuff still goes on, but at least you can be vocal now. And now with our phones and, you know, everything's broadcast everywhere, there's outlets now, more and more of that we're seeing that, and people are believing our stories. So I really feel, as many of these we've watched and talked about, I really feel because of the young kids, a change is gonna come.
Hey Sam, good.
Yeah, see what I did there?
Yeah.
So you have to stay positive when you watch these things and try to understand. I don't have any kids, at least none of I know of. I don't know what I would say. So I can live vicariously through talking to my nephew and just telling him, you know, as being like a father figure for him. It's like, hey man, I love you, and I don't want to see anything happen to you, especially if something that could have been avoided. So understanding, even though they are 100% in the wrong, you just gotta breathe with your hands up and just take your time and just try to understand. And when you get a chance, call for help. That's it. And that's all you can do in those situations. The dialect, when they sit down, and now he's going to make his own jury, right? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And so I love that he got inmates. And so we do research here on the Ellen Show. So a couple of those guys were actual inmates that just got out.
Right.
And so they put him in the movie, and I was like, that was crazy. And one guy just got arrested for something stupid. You know, he couldn't make it to his hearing on time to report, and so he got put back in again. So the system, or they use you as a snitch. So as soon as you get out, and Nate was talking about this on an interview, he's like, you know, the system is so corrupt that even when you do get out, they still use you. So they'll catch you on some BS and then use you back in the system as a snitch. So you're constantly working. They own you. And so how do you try to lead the right path when there's so many ways that you could just all fall at the end of the day?
Yeah, that ad hoc trial situation was genius. And everybody that made up that trial scenario was, I think, like I said earlier on, it represented a variety of perspectives, right?
Yeah.
You have the cops, you have the black and blue on one side, you have the jury on the other side, and the jury is made up of men, orange suited prisoners. Then you have they weren't the jury. The jury was made up of like people who just happened to be in the precinct when he took it.
But also a couple of the inmates too. Yeah, they took like three or four inmates and then mixed them with the people that were just there for like a traffic ticket or something else.
Right, and so you have Nate Parker and his entourage of people that he put together, Amari Hardwick, some of his other boys, veterans, to stick up the precinct. And so it's this crazy, profound conversation of both sides of how cops, their perspective and what they think when they pull people over, right? And the risk they're taking, right? And so, and then the risk on the other people's side, the two black men who are stopped for no reason because they were speeding, but there was no clock of said speed, right? And so what I thought was dope about this is that the cop who killed his son, it felt good to hear him admit that it was just profiling, because he had hemmed and hawed for a year that they were speeding and that was justifiable, right? That's why I stopped them. The kid looked like he had a gun, but you know damn well he didn't. He was holding up a cell phone recording this whole situation, and that's why you shot him. So while there was resolve in that regard, the reality of how people could potentially think about us as African Americans, that was hard. That was a tough pill to swallow, right? But I'm glad that Nate Parker took it there.
I had to have that conversation. And the female cop, the black female cop that spoke, I was like, whoa. I'm a female cop and a black female cop. And I don't say this for all of us now. I feel a certain way as well. And then I was like, oh, okay, we're getting actually cops speaking up, because that's the worst part I think about it all. this continues to happen, but you rarely see cops stick. They usually just stick up for one another. They don't really speak out against one another.
Right.
And so I understand. We're always supposed to understand the Serpico rules. So have you ever seen the movie Serpico? You know, he ratted out all the cops that were doing the bad deals and drug deal and selling all that stuff, and then no one had his back. So when I'm going into a situation, if I don't have this cop having my back, I can die, and I want to come home to my family and kids. But at some point, we got to stop using that as an excuse. You know, you have to do the right thing. This is what you signed up for. These are what my tax-paying dollars are going to. You know, so I need to be treated the same way you treat anybody else. Again, going back to what you said earlier, him admitting he profiled. Like, what? He's like, what are you doing in this neighborhood? If I could tell you, I got into arguments during the stop and frisk era. Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. I lived in the city, and I would commute to Staten Island to get a haircut. And I would always wear like loud hoodies, nothing like dark black or anything, because I know that they were just like, yo, get over here. And I was like, I'm doing nothing but getting a haircut. Me of all people, I'm like, trust me, the last thing I'm doing is anything crazy. But I would argue with these white guys at the bar, and I would say, listen, it was like, but bro, why do you guys always have to wear hoodies? And I was like, okay. So one, as a legal tax-paying American, I should be allowed to wear whatever I want. I shouldn't have to change my day because you're not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, that's on you. And something clicked in his brain. I'll never forget. He just had an epiphany. He's like, oh, wow, It's like, yeah, I'm a person just like you. Hello. So why can't I wear whatever I want to wear? How does that offend you? Why should I be stopped just because I'm wearing a hoodie? Why? Give me a reasonable reason that makes sense. Why I should be stopped? Because the only other reason you can come up is because I'm black. That's it. There's no other reason on top of that. And so I think with this movie, and I hope it does, I'm really, last thing I'll say on this, I'm really upset. Rotten Tomatoes destroyed this movie, and that's wrong. You gave it a 10 out of the box. All these movies, I'm looking at what they got rated. All these movies got rated better. I'm not trying to say who's better than that, but the fact that Rotten Tomatoes gave it a horrible 31%.
Wow.
And IMDb gave it 5.9 out of 10. Like, he gets killed on every movie where he makes people think, and he goes against the current. And shout out to him for continuing to do this. Remember when he put out Birth of a Nation, all of a sudden these rape allegations came up, right? And so they keep on attacking this brother, and I love that he's willing to like just be the sacrificial lamb for the greater good, because these stories and these conversations have to get out. But Hollywood, once again, they're in control of everything getting out there and things changing, because again, visually we are. If we see things visually, then we slowly start to accept it. So the more and more we see these things and we start having these real conversations, then things will really start to change. But if you start, 30% on Rotten, I'm arguing people like, well, that's
crazy. And
it's 2021, so everybody looks at Rotten Tomatoes like scores, like, oh, I got 31%, so why would I check it out? I'm like, ugh.
It's frustrating. I mean, LA Times, somebody from LA Times wrote an article about it, and they said that Nate Parker falls short of building credible drama out of urgent issues. Are you kidding me?
I was wondering, like, I was reading these reviews. I was like, did they get paid?
These are not black people. These are not black people with these.
Obviously. And that's what I think they did. They literally had reporters, and they were like, oh yeah. And again, they're afraid to have this conversation. And that's why this movie has to be seen. And anybody I've met, known, I've told them, hey, oh, what's new? I was like, watch it. Right now, it's kind of like the book White Privilege. I bought it for a couple of my white friends who were going through some stuff and asked me questions. I will purchase this movie for you. And I was like, it's $6.99. It's worth it. They should have charged $20. I would have actually paid for it, $20 for it, because it was a really good movie, really well done, and it touched on exactly what's going on right now and the conversations that we're all afraid to have because we're afraid we're going to offend people because we're not comfortable about how we say things. And so again, I don't mind being your wall to like spit ideas on, and maybe I'm helping somebody kind of say, okay, hey, you can't say it that way because that's offensive, and I think the hard conversation is saying things that might offend people. And if I don't understand that my words are offending you, then how do I learn? How do I grow? So we also, as people of color, we have to be able to talk to people and say, okay, hey, I understand you're coming from a place of you want to be helpful. And so these are things, if you're going to have this conversation, this dialect, that maybe say it this way and maybe say it that way. And I think if we could start having real conversations like that, then we actually can talk. And there's no sides anymore. There's just understanding.
Keyword, understanding. So if y'all don't do anything else, please watch American Skin on Amazon. You might have to pay a little bit. It's less than $7.
That's
but
it.
I think it's worth that and more, just for the purpose of walking away from it with a little bit more understanding, whether you are Black, brown, or white.
All I need from you is understanding.
Yeah, it's an imperative film to
The
watch.
SWV? Who is that?
Escape?
Escape? It was Escape. It was Escape. It was Escape. That was Tiny. Yo, full circle. See what you did there?
That's funny. Yeah, so all in all, Cutthroat City, The White Tiger, American Skin. Please, please watch it. They're all good. And just support the cause. Support the cause.
I need a drink after a couple of them, but
definitely definitely have a bottle on standby, just because you'll need it to calm your nerves.
Yes.
On so many different levels. Yeah, I mean, I could keep talking about American Skin. It's definitely one of those conversation pieces that I think we need to have across the board. Any last words, sir?
No, actually, this was a great week, man. Great films.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because of COVID that just great movies are coming out like every week. Like we've been, right? I don't know if it's been a long time since we've had like back to back to back, whether it be shows or movies that are like the characters are deep, the characters are rich, the stories are rich. Like I'm excited. I'm just excited every week. Sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want to do this, but I'm really excited. Really excited. And you're always a delight. Thank you.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better. I feel the same way. I couldn't be happier to have these conversations with you. I walk away every week, just thinking a little differently about certain things and feeling a little differently. And that's really all I could ask for. So as always, thank you. And thank you for watching and tuning in. We will be back next Thursday, same time, same place. So have a good rest of your night. Bye, Ro.
Bye-bye.